Hi, welcome to Gotham Reader Radio. I'm your host, the Gotham Reader, and today we're going to be taking a look at the first Batman story ever published, The Case of the Chemical Syndicate, written by Bill Finger with art by Bob Kane, being published in Detective Comics number 27, printed in May 1939, with the cover art for the issue also being done by Bob Kane. For those who would like to read along, I am going to be using the Batman Chronicles Volume 1. You can also find the story in the Golden Age anthology, Batman Golden Age anthology, as well as the online DC reader base, the subscription one. I can't remember the name off the top of my head right now. Or, if you have it, the original printing. With that in mind, please take note that if you are using Batman Chronicles Volume 1, the coloration is a bit different from the original publication, and I will be making note of it during the video whenever they diverge significantly from the original colors. With that in mind, let's now begin the issue proper, starting with the cover page to Detective Comics number 27, which, if you are a fan of comics, you have probably seen some iteration of this, whether a modern take or homage or parody. But in my personal opinion, it is probably one of the most iconic covers in comic book history, primarily because it gives us a glimpse of our main focus of the channel and legendary comic book character himself, the mysterious Batman. For those of you who haven't seen the cover, we get a glimpse of Batman swinging over a city with a criminal in tow and two other criminals in awe. And then, of course, with the legendary Detective Comics title spread across the top. I don't want to go too much into describing what Batman looks like at the moment because we're going to get a better glimpse of him further on into the story, which let's just move into, starting of course with the opening panel, and we'll just go from there. The issue begins with a staple of the time, which is that most issues will start with a general title panel, which usually has the title of the name of the titular character, as well as a little blurb to kind of give a setting for what the issue may entail. For some eagle-eye viewers, you might notice that there is a hyphen in the Batman. This was a bit of a style at the time, I guess to reiterate the idea that he's both Bat and Man, at least in appearance. As for the blurb, we get the Batman, a mysterious and adventurous figure fighting for righteousness and apprehending the wrongdoer in his lone battle against the evil forces of society. His identity remains unknown. From there, we are introduced to two of the oldest reoccurring characters in the Batman mythos, the young socialite playboy Bruce Wayne and his friend, the police commissioner, Gordon. In time will be known as Jim Gordon, but for now, it's just Gordon. And we see that they are in Commissioner Gordon's house, with Commissioner Gordon lamenting on how this mysterious Batman just puzzles him. But unfortunately, their evening is interrupted with the news that the chemical kingpin, Mr. Lambert, has been found dead in his home, unfortunately with a knife in his back. Taking advantage of the situation, or I guess also doing his job, Commissioner Gordon then proceeds to not only head out to the crime scene, but also invite the young Bruce Wayne to join him, which I guess was just something you could do back in the day. Once they get to the crime scene, we find that they have their only suspect in custody, which is Mr. Lambert's son. Mr. Lambert's son pleads innocence, claiming that the only reason that there are fingerprints found on the knife that was used to slay his father is because he was the one who removed it from his back. He also comments on how that he found his father next to an open safe with the dying words on his father's breath being contract. Commissioner Gordon, seeming to believe the young man, pushes him for more information. Most likely, was there anyone who had any interest in killing the chemical kingpin? To which his son, the younger Lambert, replies, not that any he could think of, except for his former business associates, Curtis Stryker, Paul Rogers, and Stephen Crane, who surprisingly at that very moment contacts Commissioner Gordon, notifying him that his life is in danger, being warned by Mr. Lambert prior to his death. And with this information in hand, Commissioner Gordon is interrupted by Bruce Wayne, who tells him that he is not really interested in what is going on and is heading home. But then we jump to Stephen Crane's house, where we see the untimely end at the hands of a devilish criminal, who, after murdering the poor Stephen Crane, proceeds to steal some type of paperwork from him and escape from his house. But unfortunately, both him and his associate in question are stopped by the legendary, the mysterious, the absolutely terrifying Batman. So this is our first in-comic book appearance of the Batman. And for those of you who aren't familiar with how the Batman looks, he's an individual in a gray bodysuit with accenting briefs, boots, gloves, a cape that gives him kind of bat wings, and a cowl that gives him also a bat-like visage, as well as the iconic bat symbol on his chest, and the even more iconic yellow, or equally iconic yellow utility belt around his waist. Depending on the publication you're reading, you will be seeing one of two colorations. If you're reading Batman Chronicles, you'll be seeing what a lot of people consider the more traditional coloration, or at least the coloration that people are familiar with, which is that the accenting features of the outfit are a bluish black. While this is the more well-known color pattern, it is not the original. The original had the accenting features in pure black, or a grayish black, and with the exception of the gloves, which were purple. The reason for this, from my understanding, was that blue wasn't a ink color that was in existence at the time of the first issue, or they didn't have the color blue ink on hand. I'm not 100% certain, but it is definitely one of those two. With that in mind, I do kind of dig the purple gloves. Unfortunately, they are only going to be around for, I believe, this issue and maybe the next. After that, we kind of revert to the more traditional bat colors. But I do believe it is a fun fact that is worth holding on to. Now back into the story proper, we get to see the Batman in action for the first time, in which he clobbers these criminals using traditional vigilante methods of the time. Punch here, kick there, toss one poor fellow from the roof, and then, after all is said and done, acquire the mysterious papers in question. But at that very moment, Commissioner Gordon and his police arrive to, unfortunately, fail to save poor Mr. Crane, but their attention is quickly turned to the Batman, who, much like a bat, flees into the dark of the night. From here, we get a small couple of transitionary panels, with one of significant note being that we do get to see how Batman travels from, I guess, location to location, which is, at least for the time being, a two-door red coupe. This is going to be fairly significant as it establishes a Batman's preferred mode of transportation, and will also be foundational in the design for another iconic Bat item that we will eventually see in a couple of issues. Next, we jump to Mr. Rogers, who has shown up to the house of Mr. Stryker, looking to, I guess, warn Mr. Stryker of the two current deaths at hand and perhaps prevent his own demise. Unfortunately, this was a poor choice on Mr. Rogers' end, because when he arrives to Mr. Stryker's house, he is assaulted by Stryker's personal assistant, Mr. Jennings, and is then placed in the first death trap that we will see in a Batman comic, which is a glass chamber that is going to lower over the poor Mr. Rogers and fill with a noxious gas. But luckily, like hope in the night, Batman jumps through an open window, technically foyer, and proceeds to enter the trap with Mr. Rogers, and using his bat-like ingenuity is able to not only stop the device, but free both him and Mr. Rogers from the terrible predicament. So just to give a quick breakdown on what actually occurs when Batman jumps through the foyer, we see him grab a wrench from a table when he enters into the trap with Mr. Rogers. He then plugs the gas port with a cloth and then proceeds to break the glass chamber using the wrench. After Batman frees Mr. Rogers, he then subdues the dangerous Mr. Jennings. But while Batman is preoccupied with that, the last actor in our mad play appears, Curtis Stryker, who immediately attempts to kill poor Mr. Rogers, only to be stopped by the Batman, who then reveals that it was Curtis Stryker who orchestrated all the murders that we have seen throughout this issue, in an attempted conspiracy to not only remove Mr. Lambert, but also any previous business partners he had in association to Apex Chemical Corporation, with the goal to be the sole owner of the corporation without having to pay out any of his previous partners. Batman reveals that he had acquired this knowledge from the contract that Curtis Stryker's men had attempted to steal from the deceased Mr. Crane. Now, Curtis Stryker, with no other options at hand, decides to make one last mad bid to kill both Mr. Rogers and the Batman, only to be met with a righteous hook that sends him careening into a chemical vat, leading to his demise, which Batman coldly surmises as a fitting end for his kind. And without waiting for a thank you, the Batman disappears into the darkness of the night. We then jump to the final panels of the comic, in which we see Commissioner Gordon regaling the young Bruce Wayne with the most recent tale of the Batman. Unfortunately, Bruce just doesn't seem to be interested, even waving it off as a fairy tale, to which the old commissioner can only lament, some people just must lead dull lives. But little does he know that the young socialite playboy Bruce Wayne is none other than the mysterious vigilante, the Batman. And there we have it, the first Batman story ever published, The Case of the Chemical Syndicate, featured in Detective Comics number 27. What are your thoughts? Was there any of you who were surprised by the reveal that Bruce Wayne is actually the Batman? If there is anyone who is not aware of that, I would really love to hear your reaction in the comments, and really anyone else who has just, thoughts on this issue. As for me, just for complete transparency, I'm not going to be going over the story too much in this one, just because for the most part, the whole Chemical Syndicate is a ripoff of another detective or another vigilante comic series at the time known as The Spirit. Hi, so this is a last minute edit because I do realize that this is a bit of a lofty statement to make for those of you who aren't familiar with maybe some history of the Batman. It is also technically a bit incorrect. The character that, or at least the story that was heavily copied, is commonly agreed to be Partners in Peril, that was featured in The Shadow by Maxwell Grant, which was published a couple of years beforehand. I am using the DC fan database as a source, but I have seen it stated in other areas that Batman was heavily inspired by The Shadow, as well as other characters at the time, but it is commonly agreed upon by other actual Batman experts that this is heavily inspired by the Shadow story. I just want to clarify that just so that everyone's on the same page. If anyone has any more information that they'd like to provide, feel free to put it in the comments below. And let's continue along with the rest of the video. Thank you. But that being said, the story does serve the general purpose, which is to introduce us to the Batman and kind of establish foundational concepts that we're going to see moving forward. And while a lot of it's very rough around the edges, the Batsuit isn't completely figured out yet. We don't have a lot of the like gadgets and things that will kind of come to know for Batman. Even Batman as a vigilante is far more brutal in this iteration than we're going to see in future iterations, just purely because of the fact that we do see he does not seem to have any issue with ending the life of a criminal. With that in mind, what we do see is still Batman for the most part. The outfit, while being rough around the edges, is all there design-wise. They're not going to deviate too far from this for quite some time. And in reality, never too far from it, even with some more of the, I guess you could say, drastic design changes. But he's a man of fisticuffs. We don't seem to see him exhibit any type of superpower, although we don't know. He may have some bat-like abilities that have yet to be revealed, but at least for now, we just understand that he is a guy in a bat suit and is doling out vigilante justice, which puts him at odds with the other notable character of this issue, who's going to be a mainstay for the mythos, is Commissioner Gordon. Eventually will be known as James or Jim Gordon. And he is, I guess, just kind of a representation of law. He isn't too really detailed of a character, but I guess neither is Bruce Wayne for the most part. The only thing that we do seem to take away from Bruce is that he is a bit of, I guess, flippant when it comes to the things that are going around him. He seems to get bored easily or lacks interest in things, but in time we're going to see if that is actually Bruce's personal character traits or if that's just a facade he keeps to separate him from the Batman. Because at least in my opinion, at this current moment, with the way that Bruce Wayne carries himself, it wouldn't really be the craziest thing to see that he was a vigilante just for the sake of being a vigilante. But that being said, we also don't really have any backstory on who Bruce Wayne is. Why is he the Batman? Why does he do bat-like things? Why is he the vigilante that we will all come to know? A lot of it's left up for interpretation. But such is the case as many of these first issues with these superheroes. It's not so much as give everybody all the information they need, but just get the hook out there to see if anyone will bite. And in the case of Batman, it turns out quite a few people did. But I think that's a good place to end it at. Once again, if you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. And before I leave, just a little bit of a blurb for the next issue, in which Batman stops a bank robbery. Thank you for listening.